The House Energy, Communications, and Technology Committee will come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Scott,
Present.
Representatives Andrews,
Present.
Coleman,
Here.
Witsit, Neely,
Here.
Burns,
Here.
Churches,
Present.
Hill,
Here.
McDonald, McFall, Wenzel, Outman,
Here.
Aragona, Bagol,
Here.
Green,
Here.
Preston,
Here.
Schmaltz.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We need a motion to adopt the minutes from the April 19th, 2023 meeting. Representative Andrews, thank you, moves to adopt the minutes. Today, we will be taking testimony on two bills. House Bill 4414, which I have sponsored, and Representative Coleman's House Bill 4066. First, we'll take testimony on House Bill 4414. I'd like to call to the table Todd Cook from Leo. The chair will go at ease.
I'd like to call the Energy Committee back to order. Welcome, Representative Scott. Feel free to begin.
Thank you so much, Chair. The Department, House Bill 4414, the Department shall create materials, resources, motto, curricula, and lesson plans concerning digital literacy and also cyber safety. The Department shall also provide those materials, resources, and motto, curricula, and lessons plans free of charge on the Department's website. So the impact of the bill will be, it will impact multiple state agencies and currently produce these materials and the DTMB because they would have to develop, design, and house the legislation. The state currently already creates and offers digital education materials for free online. So the reason why this bill I feel is really important is because, as we know, during COVID-19, it was a very traumatic period for our state. Our state was stressed and tested for the many systems that we take for granted. The lack of internet access made clear the limitations of the World Wide Web and also our ability and participation to work, for school, or access assistance. However, the lack of access to the internet was not only the impediment that emerged with respect to communication and also technology. So for the first time, we realized that a lot of individuals in our community were struggling with digital literacy. When services went online in order to continue operation, many in our communities were left behind. Even those who were able to make the transition online were greeted by the type of criminality that many were unfamiliar with and criminal that they were unaware of. It is incumbent upon us as elected officials to bridge information and establish pools of resources to address the problems that arise in our communities. So House Bill 4414 really is a simple bill. It is going to help bridge the gap of ignorance and create a pool of resources for developing digital literacy and learning how to protect oneself in the cyberspace. So really points of interest for my bill. The material that the bills require will be housed within the Department of DTMB and LEO to create a single web page where this really already exists and these materials are online, resources, motto, and curricular lesson plans. Also, additional websites where this information can be found would be in the DTMB Cybersecurity Resource Hub, which is located on the michigan.gov website. Also in the DTMB, cybersecurity, also located at michigan.gov. Prevent cybercrime and resource online scams at fightcybercrime.org. Cyber at michigan.gov, which is MSP. And LEO, Digital Skills and Readiness, michigan.gov. And LEO, Michigan Digital Inclusion Resources. I'd like to really highlight that our state departments do a wonderful job creating, finding, and bringing together free resources for local municipalities, community organization, and our citizens. This bill would require the departments to work with other necessary departments to collect, design, organize, post those materials in one centralized digital location. If we know that digital literacy is a problem, and it was proven that it was in COVID, in our communities and across the state, let's all draft policy that will create the support and simplicity for everyone to learn and also to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Scott. Are there any questions? Oh, does Todd talk as well? Okay, go ahead.
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Representative Scott's work on this issue. I think one of the things that I think most of the members of the committee have heard, and Eric Frederick, who's our Chief Connectivity Officer, will speak later on, Representative Coleman's bill, is this effort in terms of ensuring that everyone's connected to the internet is really about two different things. One is the infrastructure, which is an important thing, making sure people have access to the physical infrastructure and speed necessary to do the work. But the other thing really is, as Representative Scott's outlined, ensuring that people use this tool, and it is a tool, to really maximize their potential in terms of all these resources. And that we know that we have populations, whether that's maybe people who are more senior and aren't comfortable, or maybe as we grow in diversity, we have people who are new to our state here and new to the country and are learning things in terms of language, but really using that tool as a way to maximize their potential, both for the citizens of the state, but local governments. It doesn't help local governments to put more services online and then have citizens struggle to interact with those because they don't know how to do that. So I think this is really important. The Office of High-Speed Internet, as part of its directive on federal funding, will be able to really be helpful to people on this. We want people to be at their full potential. And unfortunately, Representative Scott's right. With any new tool that comes in, there becomes opportunity for people who are nefarious to prey upon others. And so we've seen that in all kinds of various forms. We want people to be educated on how to use tools. We also, unfortunately, need to educate people in terms of criminal intent that's rampant, especially in this day when people's finances are more electronically connected and all kinds of things like that. And so, again, we think this is important, and we think this is about helping ensure that individuals, businesses, educational institutions really have the ability to be at their full potential for all those they serve.
Thank you. Now, any questions? Chair recognizes Vice Chair Wenzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This seems like a common sense and a great idea. So what is stopping the department from just doing this? Why do we need a law to force them to do this?
Well, right now, it is really offered online, but it's scattered, like I said, throughout many websites. And so what we're doing now is making sure that it's in one central spot and easier to access and navigate. So that's...
I still don't understand why we need a law to do this. I mean, this is a long process, takes a lot of time, taxpayer money. Why can't the department just do it?
Well, I think part of it is Representative Scott has outlined, there are different pockets where this is already happening. And certainly that's the intent of the Office of High-Speed Internet, to have this as part of their ongoing effort to educate people. But I think that in terms of putting it in statute, it's about ensuring that the intent is there, that it continues forward, that it's not at the whim of different personalities within government, and that people have the sense of security that they know it's going to be there, that it has to be there, that it's not going to just disappear because we have a change in leadership or a change in personnel, to have that in there. And so I think in terms of things like this that allow people to have education and we're informing people, to have it in places like this makes sense. But we are working on these things, and we will, but I think this is, gives the people that sense of extra security in terms of being there and being available.
Chair recognizes Representative Green.
Yes, thank you. With the follow-up to Rep. Renzel, couldn't we solve that through the appropriations and through the budget process and through the boilerplate process through that to combine all the monies into one spot? And then when you request funds, have that put in the budget as well?
Certainly that could be, one approach that the legislature could take on. But again, going back to the idea of providing consistency in this, the budget process is a yearly process that has to go on. We'd have to have that, ensure that that boilerplate was renewed every year. And I think being able to provide that consistency over the long term would be helpful to folks. But that would be my advocacy for having it this way.
If there's no further questions, thank you both for your testimony.
Thank you, Chair.
Committee will go at ease.
I'd like to call the Energy Committee back to order. I have one card to read in regarding House Bill 4414. It's from it's for our committee, Energy Communications and Technology. Bree Anderson from DTMB is neutral on the bill and wishing not to speak on the bill today. Okay. We will now take up House Bill 4066, sponsored by Representative Coleman. We'd like to welcome Representative Coleman to the table.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, colleagues. Thank you for bringing this bill before the committee. On June 2nd, 2021, Governor Whitmer issued an executive directive establishing the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office to coordinate efforts to bridge the growing digital divide and ensure everyone has access to high-speed, reliable broadband internet. This bill is a reintroduction of my House Bill 5038 from last session. The bill is simple. It would codify the establishment of this office within the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity and has been a joint effort between Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist's office, the Governor's office, and LEO. Approximately 31% of Michigan's households do not have access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. This puts the residents and affected businesses at a competitive disadvantage in the modern economy, which relies heavily on reliable high-speed internet. Finding work, acquiring needed supplies, accessing media, education access, and opportunities, all are becoming increasingly dependent upon high-speed internet access, and too many of our citizens struggle to gain that access. As such, the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office is established to convene and coordinate our departments and agencies and state funding to address meeting the needs of Michigan residents in new and expanded high-speed internet access projects. In addition, the office will be a one-stop shop for our internet service providers looking to expand and invest in broadband projects in Michigan. Having a single office for ISPs to work on new projects significantly cuts down on red tape and ensures that Michigan will be poised to support new privately funded projects to connect our residents to modern internet speeds. Besides physical infrastructure limitations, too many Michigan residents face other hurdles to broadband connectivity, including affordability and digital literacy. The Michigan High-Speed Internet Office, or MyHigh Office, will be tasked with bringing down these barriers with a focus on affordability. Through programs like the Emergency Broadband Benefit and its new version, the Affordable Connectivity Program, Lifeline Program, other private ISP-based low-cost programs, and potential future programs, the office will work to connect Michigan residents with these programs to ensure that they have broadband access. Providing Michigan residents with a one-stop shop for seeking affordable internet options will also streamline access for end users. The mission of the office could not be more timely, as Michigan is able to tap into new federal funds for broadband projects as a result of the Infrastructure Invest Jobs Act and the Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund from the American Rescue Plan, and provide new opportunities for investment and growth and access to high-speed internet. This office is poised to coordinate efforts and serve as a steward for those who ensure that they are used in a focused and intentional manner to drive access to broadband connectivity. I'm grateful to have an excellent working relationship and a productive work group meeting. We've had this meeting with the executive branch on this bill. I'm hopeful that we can work together to ensure Michigan residents have reliable high-speed internet access regardless of zip code. We have some experts here from Leo who can testify in greater detail and answer technical questions. Today we have Todd Cook, Director of Legislative Affairs in person, and Eric Frederick, Chief Connectivity Officer, who is joining us by Zoom. And there has been one change to this bill, which is that the Director of Leo would make the appointment, not the Governor. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for your testimony. So I would like to call up Eric Frederick, who is the Chief Connectivity Officer on Zoom, and also Todd Cook, who's here today to speak on Leo's behalf. Thank you. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Representative Scott, and thank you, representatives of the committee, for allowing me to be here today. Representative Coleman summarized things well for the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office. We are Michigan's single point of contact for all things broadband, digital equity, digital inclusion in the state of Michigan, and have been working tirelessly since we were created and authorized for funding and staffing last year to really be that single point and provide resources to not only our citizens, businesses, and communities, but internet service providers as well, to make sure that we are truly connecting all of Michigan. We have a mission in our office. Our mission is to create a more digitally equitable state where everyone can leverage technology to improve their quality of life. And this means making sure that we are addressing the barriers of availability of high-speed internet, affordability, access to devices, access to digital literacy skills and training, technical support, and all of the other wraparound aspects of making sure that those connections are there and leveraged and used appropriately. We are on the cusp, just like Representative Coleman said, of being able to significantly address our availability and other barriers in the state of Michigan. The bipartisan infrastructure law contained $42.5 billion for the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment Program, or the BEAD program. While we do not yet know Michigan's exact allocation in this program, we will know by June 30th. It is estimated to range anywhere from $1.5 to $1.8 billion. And that investment is designed to address the availability challenges in the unserved and underserved areas of the state of Michigan. Through some modeling data and an analysis of those unserved areas in the state of Michigan, I believe that a combination of those funds plus investment from the private sector that we continue to see in the state of Michigan over the years will get us to our goal of universal availability of high-speed internet. The program will also allow us to address these non-deployment or non-availability issues as well, such as affordability, devices, digital literacy and skills, and again, all the other barriers that prevent folks from leveraging the internet once it is available to them. These investments are moving quickly at the federal level, and we do expect those funds to go to be able to come through our office and out our door in mid-2024. However, in the meantime, just like Representative Coleman said, we are implementing the Michigan's allocation in the Capital Projects Fund. This was in the boiler budget plate that created the office and authorized it for staffing and funding in April of last year, where we were directed to create a broadband service program. We took applications in early 2023, and we have $238 million of Capital Projects Fund to issue as grants to internet service providers to build out service. We're in the middle of reviewing those applications. We received 154 applications for the program, requesting $1.3 billion in funds. So we are only able to fund a portion of the interest in this program. And I think that enthusiasm from applicants to the program from the private sector is a show that there's interest in this space to leverage these federal programs and private investment to come together, and having the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office there to help facilitate that and make sure that we are truly reaching our goal and reaching everyone in the state is our mission. So I'll pause there and be happy to take any questions that you might have.
The chair recognizes Minority Vice Chair Representative Wenzel.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here this morning. I think helping to access high-speed internet, or expand access to high-speed internet is very important for many of our districts and for our state. But my concern involves accountability with this new department. So this year alone, my office has reached out at least 4 times to your department to get solicit feedback on legislation that we are working on, and it's been met with silence. So if we're going to grow government and put this executive order into statute, what guarantees do we have as legislators that you'll be responsive to us and our constituents? Because so far I've been less than impressed. Thank you.
Well, Representative, I'm sorry to hear that. Happy to follow up on that. In terms of the Office of High-Speed Internet, one of the directives that they have, and Eric can go into more detail, is the community meetings that they've done around the state. And so to date, they've done 30 different community meetings that bring together elected officials, educational leaders, community leaders to talk about the issues with internet within their community and what their thoughts on how to address that. There are 10 more meetings coming up. All of those meetings will go into the process in terms of ensuring we develop a plan that addresses the concerns on the ground in a way that alleviates the concerns that those constituents have. There are requirements. This is not unsimilar to a lot of programs that we have at LEO. Obviously, we have state regulators and state partners in terms of the legislature, but also at the federal level. And there's a very prescriptive kind of measure for the efforts that they're putting on and the requirements they have in terms of the federal dollars involved here.
Chair recognizes Representative Begole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sounds like a good program that a lot of people could benefit from, especially out in the rural parts. I was drawn to my attention that there needs to be an update in the definition of broadband in order to be eligible for some federal programs. Is that something that may be on your radar or that you're aware of?
Yes, that's correct. So the bipartisan infrastructure law begins to define that policy or that speed at a federal level. Within the bipartisan infrastructure law in the BEAD program, a served location is considered to be served if it has at least 100 by 20 megabits per second service. This is set out again in that funding bill. However, the definition of broadband with the Federal Communications Commission officially remains at 25 by 3 megabits per second, so significantly slower. However, the programs that will be implemented by our office through the bipartisan infrastructure law do use that new updated standard of 100 by 20 megabits per second, and so too does the program that I mentioned earlier that is funded by the Capital Projects Fund.
So we wouldn't be limited on what federal programs are available, grants and things like that, by our definition?
No, we would be meeting the standard is put out by the funding proposal, and so in terms of being accessible to those funds and ensuring we're in compliance, we would be meeting on that higher speed level. That would be the intent. And then I think there's probably discussions with our federal partners in terms of aligning their own policies in terms of the difference between 25 and 100.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Okay. Chair recognizes Representative Preston.
Thank you. I understand 30% underserved, so I live in an area that's underserved. I don't quite understand the need to initiate a permanent department when there's one already temporarily existing, fulfilling its mandate. This isn't going to go on for forever. There are plenty of technologies in the past that have rolled out without the need of a government department. This department will continue into the future when the full deployment of the internet has been achieved. If we only have 30% of the way to go, why are we creating and expanding government? We won't abolish this department. This department will continue into perpetuity, expand spending, and really fulfill and serve a need or looking for a problem that I don't know is going to exist into the future.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm hopeful as you are that this department will work its way out of a purpose in terms of that. I'll just say that as Eric has outlined, this will be somewhere in the nature of $1.5 to $1.8 billion coming into the state. So it's a significant investment that will take a number of years to deploy, especially in terms of the physical infrastructure side. And so, having the continuity beyond even this current administration to provide those services as we're working out is, I think, helpful. I think it's also going to be important in terms of our federal partners to be looking at a consistent commitment to ensure that the processes that they're helping us stay in place are moving forward and reliable for folks. So again, we would, in terms of 30%, there's a lot of things to go into there. There's the physical infrastructure that will take some while in terms of putting fiber in the ground or other methods, oftentimes across very difficult terrain in terms of some of our more rural areas of the state. That's a physical process that will take a while. And so again, I think it just provides consistency. And again, there's conversations in the future that'll be had in terms of this office, just like there is, all parts of government as the conversations happen.
If I could just follow up, do you really see this department as fulfilling the mandate of cutting costs and cutting red tape? My experience as a small business owner has always shown that government has always increased red tape and really increased cost. I just don't understand the need to establish a permanent department for what I see as a temporary issue. It looks like the current office that the governor established is doing a really good job if we're 70% deployed already.
Well, I think that's a couple of different things. It's like most projects, it's always the last bit that takes the most amount of time and the most amount of energy. And the reason why it's not part of the 70 is because it is hard. I think the other thing with the office is going forward is this is a tremendous amount of money. And even with the size of the allocation coming in, we still continue to be diligent and be efficient in terms of making sure that we're working with our private side partners, as Eric has talked about, to be as efficient as possible. I mean, one of the things that we had heard from our private side partners is at times a frustration of, well, you have to talk to this department, and then you got to talk to this department, and then you got to deal with these people. And so the idea, and we've seen this in other ways across state government, having a single place to allow our partners to come to and have conversations that are comprehensive is really helpful. And that goes to the same thing with our federal partners, allowing them to have one point of contact to work on this. And so the efficiencies come from not having our constituents have to be bounced back and forth between department and department. It's my responsibility. No, it's their responsibility. And while we try to reduce that as much as possible, having this office in place will allow us to do that much more efficiently and much more effectively.
Chair recognizes Representative Hill.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you for the presentation. I want to give a experience that we've had here in my district in the Central Upper Peninsula, where I was told of the Munising Telephone Company, the Ontonagon Telephone Company, and the Baraga Telephone Company. One of them, I believe it was Munising, bought their original equipment from Alexander Graham Bell himself back in the 1800s. So while the UP is unfortunately suffering from broadband lack of connectivity now, we do know a good thing when we see it, and we're working hard to bring that in. And there are significant challenges, as was stated by the rocks in the sand and the distances that we have to travel. And we heard at a constituent meeting that one of our schools, one of our most remote schools, a K-8 school in Wells Township, Marquette County, was only 5 miles away from the internet. And the MyHigh office and the telephone companies and the fiber company, we had a Zoom call with the township supervisor, and we're working out a plan. But what we learned too is there's levels of complexity, because in some cases we are dealing with 100-year-old equipment, and then there's franchise agreements that are based on 100-year-old telephone system exchanges that have to be negotiated because they have first right of refusal. And Eric I'm probably getting some of that wrong. He can correct me. But we have significant challenges to overcome, and it does take coordination. And it turned out there was layers of coordination that needed to be done just to get the last 5 miles to this school so that they could have the internet that those kids deserve. And so I can speak directly to the fact, and I welcome Mr. Frederick's comments on that level of coordination and the complexity. There were like 3 different grant programs. I don't even remember it all. So if you can just speak to that just as an example of the level of complexity we're dealing with here and how it's going to take time.
Yeah, thank you, Representative. Yeah, there's definitely layers of complexity as we get closer and closer to the ground on identifying where service needs to be and what the opportunities are to expand there. You're right, there have been several federal programs over the years that have provided funds to internet service providers and others in the state and across the nation to build out to those unserved areas. And so as we look to the new funding that's coming available, the BEAD program is really seen as the last ditch effort to get to everywhere and achieve that universal availability. But that means navigating all of the previous federally funded efforts. It's navigating the complexities of the various technology types that are out there in the layers of exchange boundaries and franchise agreements, like you mentioned, to identify what is the best and most efficient way to get to these places and leverage that federal dollar as far as we possibly can. It does mean coordinating with other state agencies. We convene a group called the Connecting Michigan Task Force, which is a group of other state agency staff to get together and coordinate on permitting and other federal programs that could help benefit and expand internet service into various parts of the state. So there are definitely levels of complexity to this expansion. And again, as we get closer and closer to the ground to solving that last mile, getting to that final 30, 20, 10, 5% of households as we facilitate the expansion of service, that complexity grows, and not at the least compounded by some of the other factors of rights of way, even our topography and geography, like you said, add to that layer of complexity. So as that single point of contact, we look for ways to make that complexity more efficient so that we can find ways to navigate around it so that we can expedite our goal of getting to universal availability.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Altman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if you touched on this, so I apologize. This question is a little redundant, but is the establishment of this office part of the strings attached for some of that federal funding?
Yeah, so part of the requirement of the federal funding is there be a point of contact, and Eric may know the specific language, but the general idea is a specific agency that's responsible for for the management, the oversight, the compliance on this. And so that is part of the, like you said, the strings or the responsibilities that come with this grant money. And I don't know, Eric, if you want to give more details on that.
Yeah, that's correct. The National Telecommunications and Information Administration, the NTIA, that is facilitating these grant programs, wants to have that single point of contact within state government where that designated entity can implement the programs that are coming. Many other states are establishing broadband offices. Some have been there for a long time. Others are also fairly new. But having that single point of contact will be critical for working with our federal partners on implementing these programs.
May I follow up, Madam Chair?
You may.
My next question is, Mr. Frederick, you're going to be heading up this office, correct?
That's correct.
What knowledge do you have of the industry? Because the short time that I've been in state government, I've noticed that we just throw a random bureaucrat to head some department with absolutely zero industry knowledge, and I find that troubling myself. What knowledge do you have of the industry?
That's a fair question. So while I am new to the state of Michigan, I have been working to address the broadband challenges in Michigan for the last 12 years. I worked for a nonprofit organization that assisted the state of Michigan. We've worked with federal partners. We worked with communities to do broadband infrastructure mapping, grant administration, community engagement, and a number of other things. So I've been building relationships with communities, with our industry partners for the last 12 years in the state of Michigan to get us and help us get to the point of being able to achieve our goal of universal availability.
Okay.
And I'll just add in, and Eric's being a little bit humble here, but he also, worked with the previous administration in terms of, developing this roadmap, going forward. And so, he's been working at a pretty high level, providing, guidance and information and coordinating efforts for a while here with the state of Michigan, not only in his current role, but with the previous administration as well.
Okay, perfect. And not a personal attack, just a concern that I've had since joining the legislature. I've seen this time and time again. We'll throw Todd Cook up here to head this department, or we'll do this. Just kidding, but it's a valid concern that I have, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you being here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Green.
Thank you. Just kind of following up on Rep. Hill's comment, it made me think of something that, where are you in consolidating all the positions related to the rural broadband in the MyHigh? Because, you have DTMB, you have the Public Service Commission, you have MDARD, you have these FTEs. So are you going to be consolidating all of that?
So I appreciate that, and I think that's something that we've had discussions on, throughout this process. I think, in terms of the efficiencies, what we saw with broadband efforts is, frankly, one of the reasons why we didn't make as much progress as we did is a lot of these things ended up being parts of people's jobs. And so, in terms of quantifying FTEs, I think that some of the challenge there is it was a portion of somebody's job. It was an added responsibility. It would maybe not be their top responsibility. And that just, as you would imagine, was as effective as it sounds. And so bringing this in, it's a small office that they have. As Eric has outlined, we're going to be working on pushing out, somewhere north of $1.5 billion through various programs, through various efforts. And so in terms of the staffing, I think it's really about ensuring that these priorities aren't somebody's third or fourth responsibility, but it's their first responsibility in terms of being efficient. And so, again, I think that's where we see the efficiencies is, and some of the struggles we had before is it was parts of other people's jobs and not their sole focus.
So will you be consolidating that in?
We're consolidating responsibilities and in programs. Throughout, we have a good partnership with DTMB. There'll continue to be a good partnership with DTMB and the PSC, as you spoke about. And so, in terms of responsibilities, to the extent that we're able to, and they work within the BEAD program, going forward, and the challenges that Eric and the team will encounter, we'll be doing that.
But would creating this office, though, actually streamline that? I mean, I live in the Thumb, and, we don't have cell phone service or internet, so we have zero technology in some areas. And so we're looking for an opportunity to streamline this, make this more efficient. And if we're going to be creating another office, we want it to be efficient.
Sure. No, and I think that's the goal that we all share. I think it goes back to the idea of instead of your constituents, whether they're consumers or providers, instead of being sent to one office and then another, being able to come to one place and work through comprehensively all of their concerns, be included in terms of updates in terms of the program as a whole, rather than have to kind of go from one place to another throughout and be told, well, we handle this part of it, but we don't handle that part of it. Which we know is frustrating for everyone, quite frankly.
Thank you. Any other? Okay, Representative Byrne. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding is that under the Snyder administration, the Michigan Broadband Roadmap was established. Is that correct? And if so, can you speak to us about that context and the history there?
Yes, that's correct. So at the very end of the Snyder administration, Governor Snyder convened the Michigan Consortium of Advanced Networks, or MCAN group. This was a short-term body that was brought together to create the Michigan Broadband Roadmap. This was in 2018. I contributed significantly to that process, and that roadmap was published in 2018. Leo went through and updated that roadmap in late 2021 to refresh and revise some of the recommendations and data in that roadmap. And the programs that are coming from the federal government, from NTIA, the BEAD program in particular, as well as the State Digital Equity Planning Grant Program that the NTIA is also administering, requires the state to put together several additional plans to meet the needs of the funding that is coming down the pike. So elements of that Michigan Broadband Roadmap are being incorporated into new planning efforts, being updated with new information, new context to meet the federal requirements. So the roadmap, again, was created in 2018, updated in 2021, and is going through an additional refresh now as part of the planning requirements for the federal funds that are coming.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just wanted to note the kind of broad support and bipartisan nature of this work over the course of, sounds like, many years. So I appreciate Representative Coleman and his team bringing this forward. I think it's something that, again, is bipartisan in nature, ideally, and something that will really have a lasting and powerful impact on everybody in Michigan, really for generations. So thank you for that response. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Okay, all right. Well, I want to thank you, Representative Coleman, today for your testimony, and also Todd Cook. We really appreciate you being here and supporting, and also Chief Connectivity Officer Eric Frederick. We appreciate it. Okay, I want to read in the cards of support today. So we have John Peckus, who is in support and does not wish to speak. We do have Tom Corrigan from the city of Mackinac Island, who does not wish to speak but is in support of the bill. We have Sue and Tom Van Den Deventer, who are in support of the bill and do not wish to speak. We have Joanne Galloway, who are in support of the bill and do not wish to speak, from Lansing. We have Jeannie Hoffman from the Center for Change of Michigan, that's in support of the bill that does not wish to speak. We have Gary Wellnitz, who is also in support of the bill, from AFT Michigan, that does not wish to speak. We have Rob Lilera from Michigan Rural Advocates, that's in support of the bill, that does not wish to speak. We have Bob Thompson from Michigan Farmers Union, who is in support of the bill, that does not wish to speak. And we also have Shatik Ramburan, that's also in support of the bill, from Michigan Organization on Adolescent Sexual Health, that does not wish to speak but is also in support of the bill. Okay. So we have one absent member that we need a motion to excuse Representative Whitsitt from today's committee. We have Representative Neely that makes a motion to excuse Representative Whitsitt. With there being no further business before the committee is adjourned today. Thank you.